We have been engaged for some weeks in debates on the war-making power of Congress, the court system, the strength of our executive, and so on. As expected, the Carolinas and Georgia have insisted on retaining the importation of slaves. John Rutledge of South Carolina leads their fight.
Gentlemen, our economies in the South bring great wealth to this nation. But we must be allowed to continue the importation of slaves.
Chairman, Mr. King, Mr. Rutledge calls it importation. It eases the consciences of the Southerners to use a word which applies to merchandise. But men and women are not produce, Mr. Rutledge. You do not import slaves. You kidnap them.
Hear, hear, Mr. King. It is iniquitous.
Chairman, Mr. Sherman. Now, Mr. Morris, I think the slave trade is iniquitous, too. But you know, and every man in this room knows, that the southern states will never confederate with us if we insist they give it up.
Mr. Sherman is correct. Morality has nothing to do with this argument. Interest alone is the governing principle with nations. And if the northern states consult their interest, they will see that slavery benefits their shipping.
Mr. Chair. Chair recognizes Colonel Mason from Virginia.
You are wrong, Mr. Rutledge. This is a moral issue. Nations cannot be punished in the next world for their sins, so they must be punished in this one. Slavery will bring the judgment of heaven on this country. Mark my words.
But Colonel Mason, you were a slave owner yourself.
Out of order, Mr. Chairman.
No, Mr. Chairman. I will answer that. I do not say that slavery can be abolished overnight, but its increase can. It was British merchants who started the infernal traffic, and as Americans, we must end it.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pinckney, South Carolina, if left at liberty, may stop importing slaves, as Virginia and Maryland have done. But if coerced, never.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wilson, if you are disposed to end importing soon, why not do it now? Surely no state will stay out of the Union over this.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Williamson, I rise to assure my colleague from Pennsylvania that North Carolina would stay out of the Union.
The entire South will stay out of the Union. But we are willing to compromise. I move that all importation of slaves cease after the year 1808, 20 years from now. This will give us adequate time to prepare for such a radical change in our economies.
I second Mr. Rutledge's motion. The business of government, gentlemen, is compromise. Let's get this infernal business over with.
That we would be forced to accept the Southern position on slavery was a foregone conclusion. But it is a blight on our convention and our country. Dickinson remained silent over the issue of representation in Congress. But